Camila Thorndike is co-founder of Oregon Climate, has been a sustainability advocate and social entrepreneur for more than 15 years. At Whitman College, she led the largest campus club, a climate action group, and founded a tri-college civic leadership network. After graduating with honors in 2010, Ms. Thorndike directed outreach for a regional urban planning project in Arizona, advanced green jobs for the mayor of DC, worked at the U.S. Institute for Environmental Conflict Resolution, and helped found COAL, C-O-A-L, a nationwide musical theater project about fossil fuels. So you started in college, huh?
Out of the cradle. Greetings. My name is Camila Thorndike, and I'm now the co-director of the Put a Price on It campaign, also the co-founder of Oregon Climate, which is a grassroots carbon pricing organization. And I run a carbon tax and rebate campaign in Washington, D.C. for the Chesapeake Climate Action Network. And it's an honor to address such a distinguished committee. You have the power to advance the most important defense against the existential threat facing my generation, which is climate change. I'm grateful that the DNC is open to voices like mine and the communities that I stand with. I'm here to talk about why the DNC Platform Committee should adopt a carbon tax. People say that putting a price on carbon is impossible in the current political context, but it was Nelson Mandela who said, "It is always impossible until it's done." It's time to get this done. There's too much at stake. My generation and younger Americans need our next president to act, to make polluters pay for the greenhouse gases that they are spewing into our air. The U.S. needs a climate policy that is rooted in science, economics, and social justice, and one that will last. We can meet these goals with a carbon tax that rebates the revenue directly back to American families. The scientific case is strong. Every credible plan to stay below 1.5 degrees Celsius warming includes a price on greenhouse gas emissions, such as a carbon tax. The economic case is strong. As a cross-sector and market-based solution, a carbon tax empowers businesses to profitably transition to the clean energy economy. In fact, a carbon tax could re-energize small family businesses like the metal fabrication company my grandfather started in rural Southern Oregon. It will create new manufacturing jobs in America as we retool for sustainability. And it will give people the meaningful work they want and the pride that comes with it. In contrast to regulatory solutions like the Clean Power Plan, a carbon tax generates revenue with estimates of at least $1.2 trillion over 10 years. And that revenue can be churned back into the economy to help families cope with the costs of climate change, to stimulate new investment, and to drive innovation. The case for social justice is also strong. Most carbon policy is regressive because it raises the cost of energy, and low-income households put more of their paychecks into energy than wealthier households. A carbon tax, however, again, because it generates revenue, can be a deeply progressive policy by returning that revenue to Americans in a way that fulfills economic justice. This equitable option can also further racial justice. Studies show that a carbon tax and rebate provides the highest benefit to Latino, African American, and Asian households. This is only fair, since communities of color and low-income families have contributed the least to climate disruption, but too often bear the greatest cost. Finally, if we are serious about designing carbon policy, we should design it to last, because it will take decades to achieve our goal, and we cannot afford to fight this battle twice. The American people will defend this solution over time if revenues benefit them in noticeable ways, like a regular check in the mail. This is why including a carbon tax and rebate in the DNC platform isn't just right for the climate, but it's right for politics. Yale polling shows that 68% of all registered voters would support carbon fee and dividend legislation, and those supporters come from both sides of the aisle. This means it's a tool that could be used to defeat any climate denier on the ticket. Adopting this solution into the platform would also unify this party. A carbon tax where all revenues are returned to households through the tax code is supported by 85% of Clinton supporters and 88% of Sanders supporters. the DNC could energize young people who care deeply about real solutions to climate change, like the leaders in my networks, to get out the vote for the Democrats in November. It is time to be clear that we have an affordable and inclusive, comprehensive solution that will make America a clean energy superpower while helping working families. That solution is a carbon tax and rebate, where polluters pay people to save the planet, our only home. In a world diseased with distrust, may you all find the courage to commit to this honest solution, and we will commit to you until together we win. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I must ask you, at Whitman College, where you graduated 6 years ago, right? They said that the Climate Action Group was the largest group on campus?
That's right.
And the reason why I asked you, I'm going to go back to Anthony Rogers Wright. When he was testifying, there were some questions about how much the environmental issues mean to young people. And we want to make sure that we are doing those things that are important to our young people, for our young people. Can you elaborate on that? It kind of surprised me that that would be the largest organization on campus. I'm just curious.
Well, we've been growing up with the effects of climate change. I was born in 1987 when Dr. James Hansen testified to Congress that climate change was real, actually in 1988, and that humans were causing it. And this is common knowledge. It's also not seen as just an environmental problem, but this is a problem of social justice and economic justice and mere survivability. Plenty of my peers, including myself, have questioned whether the world is safe to have children. And I think we all need to really consider our priorities if that's what this generation America is asking ourselves.
Well, thank you. Ms. Lee?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you very much for that very clear and brilliant testimony. And I wanted to follow up, Mr. Chairman, on what you said so diplomatically and chairmanship-like with regard to young people coming into the fold.
Yes.
I'm going to say it a little bit differently because I wanted to ask Mr. Rogers Wright this question. We know that young people, and especially young people of color, have not made a decision to be Democrats yet. They're more independent leaning. Now, as a Democrat, okay, Mr. Chairman, and I just want to say this clearly, as a Democrat, I want these young people to be part of the Democratic Party, okay? So what is it that you see we need to do in this platform, because I think most of us agree with what both of you are saying. What do we need to do in this platform for us to convince these young people to register as Democrats? Because that's what I want to see happen.
All right, I've been waiting for this question.
Well, you were waiting for that question, huh?
We need leaders who call for the solutions that physics and justice demand, not that are politically convenient. It's time to stop setting our priorities based on polling and start setting them on what we need to survive. And when you do that, you will see that we will rise up and we will fight for you. And that is how social change happens. It happens when people ask for solutions by name. And we need to stop with the buzzwords. We need to stop with honestly, the lack of courage. We need to start asking for what we need. And because we know plenty of people, thousands of people around the world dedicate their entire lives to building the expertise and what we need to save the planet. And it's time to listen to that expertise and find creative ways to make that political capital. We've done it in Oregon. We've turned out thousands upon thousands of people through creative art projects to fight for a carbon tax. And we're told, no, you can't do that. It's not politically feasible. Well, it is, and we created the political will, and now it's the #1 issue in the state. And so it's time to do that nationally, because without a federal price on carbon, we're not going to get there.
Ms. Tandon.
Thank you so much for your comments and passion and the work you do every day to improve our environment and address this existential crisis we're facing. I wanted to ask you just a specific question about carbon pricing, which is what are your thoughts about states using carbon pricing as a response to what they can do on the Clean Power Plan? You know, we are focused on a whole series of issues which are vital, but as you know, Republicans are have a pitchfork battle that they're now using the courts to deny just that basic action of the Clean Power Plan. So what do you think of states using carbon price as a response?
I think they absolutely should put a price on carbon as a way to fulfill the Clean Power Plan obligations. It's the most efficient way to drive down emissions. We could, with a national carbon tax, you'd see the same emission reductions in, say, a state like Montana would be $7 carbon tax. That's not much at all. To achieve the same emission reductions as the Clean Power Plan objectives in that state are looking for by 2030. So if we instead go with this option to price carbon, we'll see, I think, a lot of unity from both sides of the aisle as well, because this is the solution that plenty of conservative thinkers from past Bush and Reagan administrations are calling for, and there's common cause to be made in those states and among those circles that are combating the Clean Power Plan if we can find a focal point here.
Ms. Parker.
Yes, I too want to thank you. I'm very happy to see some of our younger generation come forward and speak their truth. And for many of us, we wait for science to prove that, and it's important at many levels. But I think it's time we listen to our young people who have that clear vision. They say millennials now. Well, I have 3 children who definitely tell me each and every day that it's so important to protect the climate. They don't have their blinders on. They're very aware of what's happening in this, not only the United States, but in this world. They're far more connected. And so I think it's very important that we start to listen to our young people, because they have a very strong voice in the environment. My 6-year-old has told me, Mom, tell them not to pollute the waters with oil. He says it very clear, and he wants to protect the fish in the sea. So that's a deeper level than what many of us are waiting for the science. But as you drive down the road and you see oil refineries, and if you live on, for us, many of us live on reservations, and you breathe in the toxins, and so your voice starts to go out, as mine is right now, from the toxins, and you have to wonder what is happening. And so we try and wait for science or action from the higher levels of government, but really the people have the power, and I really hope that we take to the streets, and that the Democratic platform is a representation of the people. So thank you.
Thank you so much for your work especially, and I just want to echo that for us this is a matter of the integrity of our bodies, and it's a spiritual crisis as well. And what a lonely world it would be without fish in the sea and birds in the sky, and that's not the world that any of us want. So thank you.
I mean this when I said thank you for generations yet unborn. Thank you.